Okay, was it exactly what I thought and suspected? Yes. Am I feeling a certain type of way about it? I mean, maybe, maybe not. Do I have thoughts? As Mr. Big said, absolutely. I'm just doing a little mini segment for you all today on a hot tickety take, if you will, by popular demand. Talk to me, Taylor style, baby, of the Kamala Harris appearance on Call Her Daddy. That is very controversial. Everyone's talking about it. And for you OGs, it's not a typical episode shoot day. So, like I said, this is by popular demand, and I was so committed. The OGs will know I am back in. You wouldn't know because I'm a floating head right now, like my floating head, floating mic, floating tits, basically. But I'm in my kitchen where Cancel Me Baby used to be. RIP. But I've resurrected to address this because I feel like this take today is, it may not be everybody's cup of tea, you know, the TT with Taylor per se, but guess what? It's the most common sense. So roll with or roll out, bitch. So, all right, first things first, we're going to do, you know, they say, like, do you want the good news or the bad news? We're going to do the good news first because, you know, bah humbug, coal in our stocking, Christmas came early, all that we'll do next. But let's address the good first. I will say that I appreciated that Alex Cooper stayed in her lane in this interview. She did this whole little like pre-interview video where she says, you know, she was really on the fence about this. She grappled with it. She doesn't normally bring politics into her show, and she decided to do what she knows, right? Women, women's rights, women's issues, mental health, trauma, sex, relationships, all this, right? Not that she did a deep dive dissertation into Kamala Harris's sex life, although like that probably should and could be the move. But I digress. At least she read the room. You know, people are all have their call her daddy panties in a wad, being like, why did she bring politics into the show? Bitch, politics is everything. Get over it, okay? Move on. Like I said, roll with or roll out. It's the name of the game, babe. Like, get with it or get lost. Understand? So I can appreciate that she read the room and did that up front. Because at first she was like, do I talk about the economy and fracking and the border? And for a minute, I was like, girl. Okay. So that's a good thing. Now, I will say her first thing was saying to Kamala Harris, essentially addressing, like, we don't really know who you are, right? Like, we don't know. We don't know who Kamala is. She changes her accent every other day, her this, her that. Like, we don't really know her positions, her stances on things. Like, honestly, just call her a Sabrina Carpenter song because her positions can be trying new ones every other day and we never really know. So, her first question out of the gate was, you know, we really want to get to know who you are. So I'm thinking, okay, this is Alex Cooper. Maybe it'll be some like kooky, unexpected thing about Kamala Harris and who she is, besides her claim to fame that she flipped burgers once at McDonald's. Again, like we get it, nobody cares, right? And so she decides to go down this path of, you know, what was it like essentially being raised by your mom? Now, we know that aside from flipping burgers at McDonald's, that being raised by her mother, who I believe was an immigrant, is Kamala Harris's claim to fame. Like it is her Myers-Briggs, it is her everything. Like we know this. So the fact that it was like such a softball question of like, we're going to really get to know you today. What was it like being raised by your mom? I was just like, wow, like what a boner killer, what a dud. Like, why? Like, and again, this is why I wasn't surprised by any of this, because as soon as I heard this interview was happening, I was like, this is just going to be a Girl Scout braiding each other's hair session, right? And thus, no strip Taylor was correct. Like dead on arrival, there it is. And I will say, this is the most sort of human and with brain cells that I've seen Kamala Harris thus far. But that's because A, she's an actress. B, she knew she was going to get her hair braided for 40 minutes. So what do we expect? Get your hat, get your tea, get your gloves. Like this is a game of softball. And I'm going to get to the bigger point about all this in the end here. But they start now going into issues like, you know, abortion and women's rights and why it's all on the ballot and why it's on the line and all this. It just seems so, you know, kind of ignorant, especially on Alex Cooper's part. But you know, Kamala Harris, we're gonna expect her to lie. I mean, that's what they do, right? Like we've seen it in, the debates, like they just lie, lie, lie. And by the way, know this up front. I am not the biggest Trump fan. Like my listeners know this. Like I'm not ride or die for Trump by any means. Like I said, I call it common sense how I see it. Like it's not hard, guys. Like maybe we should all try it, right? But even with these moderators in these debates, like we always see a slant. We always see a bias. Like how they're going to fact check JD Vance Trump a million ways from Sunday, and then the other ones they just let them run wild like it's the Wild West. So like it's so obvious. And Alex Cooper in the beginning did say she opened the door for Trump to come on, but I have a hard time believing that it wouldn't be slanted, right? And with this, it was just exactly what Kamala Harris and her team wanted. Like they knew this is what, they were going to get. And it was a lot of like, oh, JD Vance, like the childless cat lady, the blah, blah said this about you. Like, how does that make you feel? Again, it's like, A, Kamala and her team are jizzing over this, but B, like, what do you think she's going to say, right? So it's all just sort of like, again, like I said, this sort of campfire Girl Scout pandering to one another kind of stuff we're seeing here. So when it comes to like the issue of Roe v. Wade, right? So Kamala Harris paints Trump in this light of this like evil man who overturned Roe v. Wade, a woman's constitutional right to, abortion and making choices over her body and all this. And my viewers also know I'm a pro-choice girl in reasonable bounds. Do I believe, it should be up until 9 months? I don't think that that's okay. Now, again, if it's, if the life of the mother's on the line, again, I think I'm with most of the country in this and very much common sense thinking and pro-choice in that way, right? But they've painted Trump as this villain with these like Trump abortion laws. And I really wish that, and of course, again, that's to be expected from Kamala Harris, right? She is like riding on this because nobody challenges her. And the bigger point I'm getting with all of this is like, you'll see why. And it's why just kind of like be wary and think for yourself, right? But I so wish I thought about it even in the moment. I wish that Alex Cooper would have challenged her and said, well, technically Roe v. Wade was never codified. So it was always on kind of shaky, unstable ground. And then it was kicked down to the states. Now there is no such thing as like a Trump abortion ban. It's state by state. So I'd be really curious if somebody like an Alex Cooper challenged Kamala Harris on that notion and got her response to see what she thought. Like I genuinely would like to see. I've never seen Kamala Harris actually be challenged, right, on the facts. Or the fact that I believe that Trump, now again, like, was it a dick move? Maybe yes, right? But even like all these things are overlooked. How Trump has even said to a degree, he's even pro choice himself. And that has the hardcore right wingers, pro lifers nuts. He even recently challenged, I believe it was in Florida, the proposed 6-week ban. He said that was way too short. You need more time. You need more time than a month and a half, 6 weeks to even know if you're pregnant. And I know because I've seen him say this. All of that, I wish that was actually addressed and there was some pushback. And to get Kamala Harris's actual response, like, is anyone in there versus somebody just like milking the little teats of everything that she has to say, right? Which again is to be expected. The other thing is this is what drives me nuts. You guys know, as a gal who is ride or die, freedom of choice, expression, speech all day, every day, bitch. Like nothing makes me crazier than the hypocrisy of somebody like a Kamala Harris, who again is making this her hill to die on. This whole idea, and she says verbatim in the interview, as she has before, when it comes to the issue of abortion, the government should not make choices about your body. Again, where was Alex Cooper or anybody for that matter who's had this conversation to go, okay, bitch, well, explain the vaccine mandates during the pandemic. Weird how that works. I don't know. The government was able to have say on our bodily autonomy then. So like the hypocrisy is so glaring. And if you remember, like people like to brush over it now because we have such like convenient amnesia at the drop of a hat. But literally, if you guys recall, you were literally not even able to participate in society. Couldn't work, go to school, be in sports, be in a restaurant. If you were in California, like I was, travel on planes. I mean, it was literally like a branding that you had to have to literally live your life and participate in society. So Where was the bodily autonomy then? And don't even get me down the rabbit hole. If we're going to do this with bodily autonomy and choices, I would urge these people like Kamala Harris and her camp and her party to reevaluate when it comes to children making like gender affirming care, right? I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, but making decisions without their full blown adult parents' consent. So it's like, okay, we're going to give 11-year-olds bodily autonomy and choices, but not their own parents. What? Like, make it make sense. So again, I wish that there was some pushback to be had, some facts somewhere in this stratosphere. And sadly, again, it's just nowhere to be seen, right? But the biggest, I think, overall problem for me with this is that, it's unfortunately just this thing. And again, I appreciate Alex Cooper for keeping it in her wheelhouse about like women and all of this. But my jaw was literally almost on the floor and I listened to the whole thing, y'all. I listened to the whole 44 minutes, okay? Where she literally says, they're kind of consoling each other. Literally, they may as well have been breastfeeding one another and consoling each other about, how women are treated in this country. And literally, Alex Cooper essentially says that women are treated as second-class citizens. If you know, this absolutely grinds my blonde gears because, ladies, take a walk in somewhere like Afghanistan. Try riding a bike. Try reading a book. Try going in public. Try not getting stoned to death in public when your husband cheats and it's your fault. Like, try getting, today is the 1-year anniversary of October 7th, where we saw videos of countless innocent women being violently raped out in the open, out in the streets, as a means of literal gang rape warfare. So that's where it's like, I'm sorry, you guys look ridiculous. Like, yes, we're not perfect. We're not ultimately where we want to be, but we are pretty fucking free and privileged. And I would argue that this is the absolute best country to be in as a woman. Now, again, are we working out the kinks? Again, like maybe Sabrina Carpenter style? Yes. But to suggest like how we're treated and we're second-class citizens, it's just preposterous. Like, knock it off. So, I hate that perpetual, cyclical narrative of victimization of women. And it's tone deaf in a different way. It's not in tone deaf of what most people think of, like politics shouldn't have been brought in to call her daddy. It's tone deaf in that regard. So my bigger point with all of this, and it's so obvious, bigger than call her daddy, bigger than, any of these things, right? Is next up, Kamala Harris is going to go on Howard Stern. And we know how that's going to be. Same thing, like literally he may as well basically eat her out, okay? Like, I'm sorry to be graphic, but I'm just waiting for the moment, right? Think about the interview he did with Biden, okay? Tenfold now, because the ballot, the date really is coming up. But the point with all of this is, and even though Alex Cooper said in the beginning, like, I was told nothing was off limits, I thought, like, what? Like, could that be? And it's like, right, of course not, because Kamala Harris's team is only going to put her in front of people and outlets who are going to do this softball dance all the live long day. They're not going to push back. They're just going to indulge it. They're just going to reaffirm her. They're just going to validate her. And that's why they have nothing to worry about, right? So while she does this big media blitz with all of these outlets, just think about that. It's so obvious. You think for 5 seconds they're going to put her in front of somebody, anybody. Literally, it could be anybody from a Joe Rogan to a Tucker to a Laura Ingraham to, a Tommy Lauren, literally a Megyn Kelly even, over their dead bodies, okay? Over their dead bodies, guys. These people are shameless. They straight up put Sleepy Joe in the casket prematurely. You think they're going to make the mistake? They will stop at nothing of putting her in front of anybody who could challenge her, make her slip up, call her out on the hypocrisy. It's not going to happen. So don't hold your breath. And, we can all only imagine. I mean, Kamala, come on this show. Dare I say common sense experience? Oh, yes, I did. So that is that on that.